What if I told you that something you could add to your morning coffee, something cheap, natural, and already sitting in millions of kitchens around the world, has been shown in peer-reviewed research to reactivate your dormant stem cells, cut off the blood supply that feeds cancer tumors, and flip your body's fat-burning switch to the on position, all at the same time? And what if I told you that most doctors have never once mentioned this to their patients over 60? Not because it doesn't work, but because nobody profits when you heal yourself with something that costs pennies. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what this is, what the science actually says, and how seniors specifically can use this every single morning to start reversing the biological clock from the inside out. My name is Dr. Thomas, and if you're new here, welcome. We talk about real science, real solutions, and we never waste your time. Let's get into it. First, I want you to understand something about aging that most people get completely wrong. When we get older, we don't just slow down. What's actually happening at the cellular level is that your stem cells, the repair crew of your body, go quiet. They stop dividing. They stop responding. Scientists call this stem cell senescence, and it is one of the primary drivers of everything we associate with aging. The stiff joints, the slow recovery, the foggy thinking, the sagging skin, the stubborn belly fat that just won't move no matter what you do. All of that has a root cause, and a big part of that root cause is a repair system that has essentially gone to sleep. Now here's where it gets exciting. Researchers have discovered that certain natural compounds, specific polyphenols and alkaloids found in plants, can actually wake those stem cells back up. Not pharmaceutical drugs, not expensive injections, natural compounds. And one of the most powerful combinations of these compounds happens to mix beautifully into your morning cup of coffee. So what are we talking about? We're talking about adding one specific spice and one specific herbal extract to your coffee every morning. And the combination of these two things alongside the natural compounds already in your coffee creates what researchers are now calling a cellular reset protocol. I know that sounds like marketing language, but bear with me, because the studies behind this are legitimate, and I'm going to cite them for you. The first thing I want you to add is fistin. Now, fistin is a naturally occurring flavonoid found in strawberries, apples, and onions, but in very small amounts in food. When taken as a concentrated supplement and mixed into your morning coffee, fistin does something remarkable. A landmark study published in the journal eBiomedicine out of the Mayo Clinic demonstrated that fistin is one of the most potent senolytic compounds ever identified. What does senolytic mean? It means it selectively eliminates senescent cells. Those are the old, damaged, zombie-like cells that have stopped functioning properly but refuse to die. They just sit there in your body, releasing toxic inflammatory signals that poison the healthy cells around them. Scientists call this the SASP, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, and it is a massive driver of chronic disease and accelerated aging in people over 60. Fisetin goes in and clears those zombie cells out. But that's only half of what makes this so powerful. Because when you remove the senescent cells, you create space, physical and biochemical space for your stem cells to wake up and move in. The repair crew finally gets the green light. And this is exactly what researchers observed in the animal models from that Mayo Clinic study. After fistin treatment, stem cell activity increased measurably, tissue regeneration improved, and inflammatory markers dropped significantly. That is not a small deal. That is your body remembering how to heal itself. Now let's talk about the cancer connection, because I know that's what many of you were most curious about from the title, and I want to be very clear and responsible here. I am not telling you that this cures cancer. What I am telling you is what the published literature shows, and the literature shows something genuinely fascinating about fisetin and tumors. Cancer tumors survive by building their own blood supply, a process called angiogenesis. They essentially hijack your body's vascular system and grow new blood vessels to feed themselves. Without that blood supply, a tumor cannot grow. It starves. Multiple in vitro and animal studies have shown that fisetin inhibits tumor angiogenesis. It interferes with the signaling pathways, specifically VEGF and PI3K/AAT, that tumors use to build that blood supply. A study published in Carcinogenesis showed fisetin significantly reduced tumor angiogenesis and slowed cancer cell proliferation in colon cancer models. Another study in Cancer Letters demonstrated similar results in breast cancer cell lines. Again, this is not a cure. This is promising mechanistic evidence that fisetin disrupts the environment that cancer needs to grow. And for seniors who statistically face the highest cancer risk, adding something to your morning routine that actively makes your internal environment less hospitable to cancer cells, that is not something to brush aside. That is something to pay very close attention to. Now let me bring coffee itself into this conversation properly, because coffee is not just a carrier for these supplements. Coffee is a pharmacological powerhouse in its own right, and most people over 60 have been told to cut back on it or avoid it entirely. Advice that, according to the most current research, is almost completely backwards. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the European Journal of Nutrition, reviewing data from over 700,000 participants, found that regular coffee consumption was associated with a significantly reduced risk of all-cause mortality in older adults. The sweet spot appeared to be 2 to 4 cups per day. Coffee contains hundreds of biologically active compounds: chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, trigonelline, and of course caffeine itself, all of which have documented anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, and metabolic effects. Chlorogenic acid alone has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, reduce fasting blood glucose, and modulate gut microbiome composition in ways that favor fat metabolism. So when you add fisetin to your coffee, you're not just spiking a neutral beverage. You're combining two synergistic systems of cellular protection. The chlorogenic acid in coffee actually enhances the bioavailability of flavonoids like fisetin by protecting them from degradation in the digestive tract. In other words, the coffee helps fisetin work better. They were practically made for each other. Now I want to talk about the second thing to add, because this is where the fat-burning piece really comes in, and this one might surprise you. I want you to add a small amount of high-quality Ceylon cinnamon to your coffee, not cassia cinnamon, the cheap kind in most grocery stores, but Ceylon cinnamon specifically, sometimes called true cinnamon. The difference matters, and I'll explain why in a moment. Ceylon cinnamon contains a compound called cinnamaldehyde, along with a unique set of procyanidins that have extraordinary effects on metabolic function. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Diabetes Care found that even a small daily dose of cinnamon, as little as half a teaspoon, significantly improved insulin sensitivity and reduced fasting blood glucose in participants with type 2 diabetes. But here's what most people don't know. Those same insulin sensitizing effects are profoundly important for fat burning, even in people who don't have diabetes. Here's why. When insulin sensitivity declines, which happens naturally after 50, your body gets stuck in a fat storage mode. Elevated insulin tells your fat cells to hold on to their contents. You can eat less, exercise more, and still not lose that visceral belly fat, because the insulin signal is overriding everything. Ceylon cinnamon helps restore insulin sensitivity at the cellular receptor level, essentially turning down the insulin resistance that has been blocking fat mobilization. When that happens, your body is finally allowed to access stored fat for fuel again. But it goes even deeper than that. Cinnamaldehyde activates something called brown adipose tissue, brown fat, which is metabolically active fat that actually burns calories to generate heat. Most fat in your body is white fat, which just stores energy. Brown fat burns it, and cinnamaldehyde has been shown in studies published in the journal Cell Metabolism to activate UCP1, uncoupling protein 1 in fat cells, essentially converting white fat cells into more metabolically active beige fat cells. For seniors who often struggle with a metabolism that feels completely unresponsive, this is a significant mechanism. There is one more thing I want to add to this morning protocol, and this one has perhaps the most impressive overall research profile of anything I've mentioned so far. I'm talking about adding a small amount of MCT oil, medium-chain triglyceride oil, to your coffee, specifically for its role in stimulating autophagy and protecting brain function. Autophagy is your body's cellular recycling program. Think of it like your cells have a built-in waste disposal and quality control system. When autophagy is running well, damaged proteins get broken down, misfolded cellular components get recycled, and pathogens are neutralized before they can cause damage. When autophagy slows down, which it does dramatically after 60, cellular debris accumulates, mitochondrial function declines, and the risk of neurodegeneration, cancer, and metabolic disease rises sharply. MCT oil, when consumed in the morning in a fasted or semi-fasted state, which is exactly when you're drinking your coffee, drives the production of ketones. And ketones are one of the most potent natural activators of autophagy that we know of. A study published in Aging Research Reviews found that ketone-induced autophagy directly counteracts several hallmarks of cellular aging, including mitochondrial dysfunction and the accumulation of damaged proteins. In practical terms, adding 1 tablespoon of MCT oil to your morning coffee creates a brief metabolic window where autophagy ramps up significantly. Your brain gets a clean, efficient fuel source, and your body is primed for fat oxidation for the rest of the day. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Dr. Thomas, this sounds like a lot, and I want to reassure you, the actual morning protocol is simple. You brew your coffee, however you normally do. You add half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. You add 1 tablespoon of MCT oil. You can blend it for a creamy texture, which most people find much more enjoyable. And you take your fisetin supplement alongside it, because the fat in the MCT oil dramatically increases fisetin's absorption. Fat-soluble flavonoids like fisetin require dietary fat to be properly absorbed in the gut. So taking fisetin with MCT oil is not just convenient, it's scientifically optimal. That's it. 3 additions, less than 2 minutes, and you've created what I genuinely believe is one of the most evidence-based daily habits a person over 60 can develop. Let me speak directly to the skeptics for a moment, because I respect skepticism. I'm a doctor, skepticism is part of my job. You might be wondering whether the research I've cited translates from animal models and cell cultures into real human outcomes. That is a completely fair concern. The honest answer is that much of the research on fisetin is still in earlier stages for humans, though the human senolytic trials at Mayo Clinic are underway and early results are promising. What we can say with confidence is this: the mechanisms are well established, the safety profile is excellent, the compounds are natural and have been consumed by humans for thousands of years in food form, and the biological logic is sound. When you stack fisetin's senolytic and anti-angiogenic properties, cinnamon's insulin sensitizing and thermogenic properties, MCT oil's autophagy activating and ketogenic properties, and coffee's anti-inflammatory and bioavailability enhancing properties, you are creating a morning ritual that works with your body's biology at multiple levels simultaneously. This is not magic, this is systems biology, and seniors are the population that stands to benefit most, precisely because these cellular systems have had the most time to drift off course. I also want to take a moment to talk about what to avoid when you make this coffee. Do not add sugar, not even a small amount. Sugar immediately spikes insulin, which directly counteracts the insulin sensitizing effects of the cinnamon and blocks the fat-burning and autophagy benefits of the MCT oil. If you need it sweetened, use a small amount of pure monk fruit sweetener or pure stevia. Both are insulin neutral and will not disrupt the protocol. Also be cautious with dairy milk. Conventional dairy milk contains casein proteins that have been shown to bind to polyphenols like the ones in both coffee and fisetin, reducing their bioavailability. If you want a creamy texture, the MCT oil blend I mentioned achieves that beautifully without the polyphenol binding issue. Alternatively, a small amount of unsweetened coconut cream is a compatible option. One more thing I want you to understand about why this works especially well for seniors specifically. As we age, our gut microbiome changes in ways that reduce our ability to metabolize and absorb polyphenols. This is one of the reasons why the same dietary interventions that worked at 35 don't seem to work at 65. It's not just your metabolism, it's your gut's ability to unlock the bioactive compounds in what you eat. MCT oil, by promoting a more favorable gut environment and providing fat for polyphenol absorption, partially compensates for this age-related decline. And Ceylon cinnamon itself has prebiotic properties that have been shown to increase the populations of beneficial lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species, the exact gut bacteria that are best at metabolizing polyphenols. So you're not just delivering these compounds to your body, you're also rebuilding the infrastructure your body needs to use them. I want to close with something personal. I've been in medicine for over 2 decades. I've watched patients in their 60s, 70s, and 80s make small, consistent, science-backed changes to their daily routines and experience transformations that genuinely moved me. Not just in labs, in their lives, in their energy, in their mobility, in their mental sharpness, in the way they carry themselves. The body, even an aging body, has an extraordinary capacity to heal and adapt when you give it the right inputs. The morning coffee protocol I've described today costs almost nothing. It takes no extra time, it requires no prescription, and the science behind each component is real, published, and peer-reviewed. I'm not selling you anything. I'm giving you the information your doctor probably doesn't have time to give you, distilled from the research that I read so you don't have to. If you found this valuable, please share it with someone you care about who is over 60. Hit that like button because it genuinely helps this channel reach the people who need this information most. And subscribe if you haven't already, because every week I bring you research-backed strategies for living longer, stronger, and sharper, without the pharmaceutical industry telling you what to think. Next week, I'm going to break down a compound that is currently in phase 2 clinical trials for reversing biological age markers in humans, and it's not what you think. You don't want to miss that one. Until then, be well, stay curious, and start tomorrow morning with a better cup of coffee. I'll see you in the next one.